Hi and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to finally watch Napoleon's Marshals. This is from Epic History TV. Great channel. So this is the series they've done. I don't know how long ago. But this is about Napoleon's Marshals, right? Probably the best of the best generals that Napoleon had. Maybe some was worse than others, right? And we will see them. But alright, original videos down below. I'm excited. Let's go.
Terror belli, decus pacis. Terror in war, ornament in peace.
Right.
The words inscribed on every French marshal's baton.
Okay.
In France, the title of Marshal or Maréchal goes back at least to the 13th century.
Wow. See the history of France there, right? The 13th century, what is that? The 100 Years' War, probably? Yep.
Represents the highest possible position of military authority. Authority symbolized by a marshal's baton.
Look at
the
that.
The title was abolished during the French Revolution as incompatible with the egalitarian spirit of the age.
Right.
But in 1804, Napoleon founded a new empire and restored the ancient rank. That year, he picked 18 of France's best generals and made them marshals of the empire.
Let's see how many we remember here. Augereau, I think I remember. Bernadotte, Davout, Jordon, Lannes, I know, Lefebvre, MacDonald, Marmont, Massena, Murat, obviously, Ney, Saint-Cyr, I think I know, Soult and Suchet and Victor. I think those are the only ones I remember. Okay.
8 more were created in the years that followed. The marshals outranked everyone in the new empire, apart from Napoleon's family, princes, and ministers of state. They came from every background, sons of aristocrats and innkeepers, professional soldiers, and those who'd learned on the job.
Right, because most of them get the marshal baton because of merit, right? And their usefulness under Napoleon. And obviously apart from Napoleon when they're attacked by themselves or attacking by themselves, not under Napoleon, right?
Old school Republicans and Bonaparte loyalists. The youngest, just half the age of the oldest.
Wow.
And though Marshal was a civil title, not strictly a military rank, the men known to the army as les gros bonnets, the big hats, were arguably the most extraordinary, diverse, brilliant, and flawed group of military commanders in history.
Of course they're flawed, they're
humans. The most favored were showered with titles and wealth. But the price too was high. Half were wounded, 3 were killed or died of wounds. 2 were executed.
Wow.
This is Epic History TV's guide to Napoleon's Marshals.
I mean, these marshals are like larger-than-life characters under Napoleon. Maybe before Napoleon they weren't that, right? This is incredible.
All 26 have been ranked according to our own evaluation of their achievements as marshals, with expert guidance from retired Lieutenant Colonel Remy Porte, former chief historian of the French army.
Wow.
More than 2,000 French generals served in the Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars. Many were brilliant leaders. A few probably deserved to be marshals, more than some who were. Any selection can only be difficult and highly subjective, but here's our pick of 12 of the best. Bertrand, Napoleon's faithful aide-de-camp, who commanded 4th Corps at the Battle of Leipzig. Clausel, a veteran commander of the war in Spain.
Both these two lived pretty long lives. That's pretty cool. And I think Bertrand was Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he was chief of staff or something during Waterloo as well. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe.
Desaix, Napoleon's close friend, killed
Wow.
at Marengo, aged 31.
Yep.
Prince Eugène, Napoleon's adopted son, a
Josephine's
hero of the
son.
Russian retreat. Gérard, one of Napoleon's best corps commanders by 1814, made a marshal by King Louis-Philippe
Wow.
in 1830. Goudon, whose infantry division bore the brunt of the fighting at
Okay.
Auerstedt in 1806, died of wounds near Smolensk
Wow.
in 1812. Junot, who first served with Napoleon at Toulon in 1793, probably committed suicide after his fall from favour in 1813.
Whoa.
Lassalle, the Hussar general, among the best light cavalry commanders of the Napoleonic Wars.
I mean, he looks like a cavalry commander, right? Look at that Hussar's uniform. Look at his hair. Look at his mustache. Look at that.
Killed at Wagram, aged 34.
Oh, at Wagram.
Maison, who told his division on the morning of Leipzig that they must win that day or all be killed, made marshal by King Charles X in 1829.
But he wasn't killed though.
Montsouty, the heavy cavalry commander who died of wounds and exhaustion, aged 46.
Wow.
Saint-Hilaire, hero of Austerlitz, died of wounds received at Aspern in 1809.
Wow.
Vandamme, of whom Napoleon once said, "If I had to invade hell, I'd want him commanding the vanguard."
Whoa.
And now,
Whoa, I just got chills all over my body. Wow. Look at these men though. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 who survived the entire Napoleonic Wars and Revolutionary War, if they were a part of that. And lived a decade or two after Napoleon lost his position. Look at this. Yeah, 6 out of 12. So half died, half survived. Wow. Incredible.
Napoleon's 26 marshals, ranked in order of merit. 26. Marshal Perino.
Okay. He's the worst of them,
When
I guess.
Napoleon created the first 18 marshals, 4 were honorary marshals, recognized for past service to France.
Makes sense.
Perignon was one of these. A former officer in the Royal Army, he'd won fame in the Revolutionary Wars, fighting the Spanish on the Pyrenees front. He
Okay.
later served as ambassador to Spain.
Shocking that he wasn't in the American Revolution. Okay.
After a brief retirement, he was sent to Italy and commanded the French left wing at the disastrous Battle of Novi, where the army was routed by
Okay.
Suvorov's Russians, and Perignon was badly wounded and captured. His appointment as honorary marshal in 1804 was a political move by Napoleon, a
Makes
way
sense.
to win acceptance for his new empire, by emphasizing continuity with the revolution, by rewarding its military heroes.
I mean, that makes sense, and that's something you want to do with the politicians and military leaders and soldiers from that time. And Napoleon is going to do that also with people who fought in the American Revolution who were, you can say, royalists, right? So you want continuity throughout France's history, not only to the revolution, right? Because Napoleon was a mediator, right? But the royalists called him a revolutionary, and the revolutionaries called him a royalist, right? So he had to mediate between those two, right?
Perignon never held active command as a marshal, but served
Okay.
as governor of Parma, and
Oh.
later Naples. His eldest son, Pierre, was a cavalry officer, killed at Friedland in 1807.
Wow.
Perignon retired in 1813, but refused to support Napoleon when he returned from exile in 1815 and was stripped of his marshal's baton. His
Sure.
rank was later restored by King Louis XVIII.
Makes sense.
25. Marshal Brun.
Okay, I haven't heard of him. He was justly proclaimed the savior of the Batavian Republic. Okay, by saving Holland, he also saved France from invasion. Okay.
Brun was another marshal whose appointment owed much to politics. As a fiery Republican and former close ally of revolutionary leader Jordon, his support was politically useful for Napoleon. Brun joined the army during the Terror, the most extreme period of the revolution.
You can
His
say
political
so.
connections ensured rapid promotion, and he was sent to help put down a counter-revolutionary revolt in Bordeaux.
He was at Archelais
In
Rivoli.
1795, as a 30-year-old brigadier general, he helped Napoleon disperse a royalist mob in Paris with the famous whiff of grape shot.
Yep.
Brun then served with Napoleon in Italy, fighting in several of his famous early victories. He won a reputation as a fierce divisional commander and enthusiastic plunderer of Italian towns and churches.
Wow.
In 1798, he commanded the French occupation of Switzerland, while extorting 200,000 francs from the wealthy Swiss communes,
Wow.
the equivalent of several $1 million today.
Wow. Yeah.
It was said that Brun's personal carriage was so laden with gold when it left Switzerland that it immediately broke down.
Right. Not a very good Republican, though, if you're going to be a fierce Republican like that, right? That sounds very royalistic of you. Every treasure, or a lot of treasure, gets in your pockets, not everybody else on merit, right? I guess he thought maybe he was owned that because of his actions, whatever.
The next year, he won his most important victory while commanding French forces in Holland, defeating an Anglo-Russian army at the Battle of Castricum and saving France from invasion.
That was disastrous for the
But
British.
a short, calamitous spell commanding the army of Italy convinced Napoleon that Brun was not fit for high command. Instead, he sent him to be ambassador to the Ottoman Empire, where in 1804 he learned that he'd been made a marshal.
Okay.
But Brun's lack of delicacy, combined with a towering sense of self-importance, did not make him a successful diplomat. He was recalled to France, but as governor of the Hanseatic ports, blundered again, drafting a treaty with Sweden that failed to make any mention of the French emperor.
Wow.
Whether a deliberate insult or act of incompetence, Napoleon was furious, and Brun was sacked.
Wow.
Brun spent the next 7 years at his country estate. He bitterly opposed the return of the Bourbon monarchy in 1814.
Makes sense.
And rallied to Napoleon when he returned from exile the next year.
That also makes sense.
But in the tumult following Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo, Brun was cornered by a royalist mob in Avignon, murdered and tossed into the River Rhône.
Wow.
24.
Sad.
Marshal Serrurier.
But again, you can't understand the royalists because during the revolution, the treatment of royalists and just Christians as a whole was pretty one-sided, right? I mean, especially during the terror, right? He retained all the characteristics and severity of an infantry major. Okay, an honest man with integrity and reliability. But unfortunate as a general. I mean, some people are just better at lower positions than a higher up positions because maybe they're better to visualize their strategy and all that than to see it on a map and just talk with higher ups and all that, right? Makes sense.
Serrurier was another of the 4 honorary marshals whom Napoleon wished to recognize for past service.
Makes sense.
In contrast to Brun, Serrurier was a professional soldier of the old school, a veteran of the 7 Years' War, and a stern disciplinarian.
Oh, he was
at
at 7 Years'
was
War.
not necessarily an asset during the French Revolution,
No.
when any officer who'd served in the Royal Army was viewed with suspicion. But Colonel Serrurier's training and diligence were soon recognized as assets to the new French Republic. By 1795, he was a general serving with Napoleon in Italy, where his stand against corruption and looting won him the nickname the Virgin of Italy. Serrurier was a reliable...
That tells you something of what other French soldiers and leaders, generals did there, right? We saw what they did in the Italian campaign, but it's probably worse, right? If he's called the Virgin of Italy, standing against corruption, then you know how corrupt, or not corrupt, but how much looting and all that was going on, right? I mean, especially when it was sort of endorsed by the leaders of France at the time, right? The director, I mean, they were corrupt, and probably everybody knew it, and they themselves knew it, right?
If unspectacular commander, who won an important victory at Mondovi at a crucial moment in Napoleon's rise to fame.
Okay.
The following year, he accepted the Austrian surrender
Yeah, that we saw.
at the end of the long siege of Mantua.
Yep.
2 years later, fighting under General Moreau's command, Serrurier and his division were cut off by the Russians and forced to surrender. Released on parole, he was back in Paris in time to support Napoleon's coup d'etat of 18 Brumaire.
Right.
Serrurier then retired from active command. But Napoleon, remembering his past service, made him an honorary marshal and governor of Les Invalides, the retirement home and hospital for old soldiers.
Okay, that's good.
There, shortly before the fall of Paris in 1814, Serrurier oversaw the burning of more than 1,000 captured flags and standards.
That's sad.
To prevent them falling into Allied hands.
I mean, I understand why they did it, but still, that's sad. We could have had that today, but they burned it.
23. Marshal Kellerman.
Okay. I think that I was probably the boldest general who ever lived. Okay. But even I wouldn't have dared to take post there. Okay. Napoleon on Kellerman's command post at the Battle of Valmy. Okay.
Kellerman was another honorary marshal, the oldest at 68, and famed throughout France as the saviour of the revolution. A career soldier from a middle-class background, he'd seen distinguished service as a cavalry officer in the 7 Years' War. At the beginning of the Revolutionary Wars, he was a general, commanding a frontier army at the moment of greatest crisis, when it seemed foreign invasion was about to stamp out the revolution and restore the Ancien Regime.
I mean, it looks like that, right?
In September 1792, Kellerman's Army of the Centre stood its ground, and with a ferocious artillery barrage, persuaded the Prussian army to withdraw. Valmy was not a stunning tactical victory, but it was a turning point of history that saved the infant French Republic. When the revolution took a more radical turn, even a war hero like Kellerman became suspected of royalist links, and spent a year in prison under the threat of the guillotine. Acquitted and restored to command, he was poised to launch a new offensive in Italy, when he was sidelined, first by General Scherer, then in favour of a rising new talent, General Bonaparte. Kellerman later specialised in army administration and training, a role he continued to perform under Napoleon, whilst also entering politics and serving as President of the Senate. His son, General François-Étienne Kellerman, followed in his father's footsteps, serving as one of Napoleon's best cavalry commanders.
That's pretty cool.
22. Marshal Gushi.
I think I remember Gushi, actually. Okay. His conduct was as unforeseeable as if his army on the march had been struck by an earthquake and swallowed up. Napoleon on Gushi's failure to march to his aid during the Battle of Waterloo. Right.
When Napoleon returned from his first exile in 1815, he created one last marshal for the upcoming campaign, Emmanuel de Grouchy. Although now infamous for failing to march to Napoleon's aid during the Battle of Waterloo, up to that moment, Grouchy had had a long and distinguished military career. An aristocrat who embraced the French Revolution, Grouchy served with distinction throughout the Revolutionary Wars, fighting counter-revolutionaries in the Vendée and serving in Italy, where he was wounded and captured at the Battle of Novi. Under the Empire, Grouchy excelled as commander of a dragoon division in Marshal Murat's cavalry reserve. He was
Okay.
praised by the Emperor for his part in the Great French Charge at Eylau.
Yep.
Played an important role buying time for Napoleon at Friedland.
Okay.
And expertly covered the French right wing at Wagram. In the
Okay.
invasion of Russia, he commanded 3rd Cavalry Corps and was
Look at
wounded
that.
at Borodino. He survived the horrors of the retreat, but was left so exhausted it took him several months to recover.
Yeah, makes sense.
He returned for Napoleon's 1814 campaign in France, and was wounded twice more.
Wow.
Gushi was made a marshal at the start of the 100 Days campaign,
Okay.
and commanded Napoleon's right wing at Ligny.
I mean, that's gonna give you motivation, I guess, right? But he sounds like a career soldier, right? He's there every time, except at Waterloo, but you know.
After the battle was won, he was ordered to pursue the retreating Prussians to prevent them joining up with Wellington's Anglo-Allied army.
Yeah.
2 days later, as the Battle of Waterloo raged 10 miles to the west, Grouchy made the fateful decision to follow his written orders, rather than march to join Napoleon.
See, that's the problem. That's why you have to walk the fine line of written orders, but use also your own judgment. So yes, you can fault Grouchy for this, but it's Napoleon's written orders, so I follow them. And the funny thing is, a lot of the times when the marshals, generals under Napoleon follow what Napoleon said and did what he said they were going to do, they got success. Here, they didn't, because Napoleon didn't understand. Right?
And has been widely blamed for the French Emperor's defeat ever since. Grouchy's vilification is not wholly fair,
No.
not least because Napoleon rarely encouraged his marshals to show initiative.
Exactly.
Often flew into rages if they deviated from his written orders.
Right, this is like, damn if you don't, or damn if you do, damn if you don't, right?
Nor should one blunder obscure the distinguished record of one of the Grande Armée's best cavalry generals.
Exactly, and nor should one blunder say that that's the reason why Napoleon lost the entire Waterloo, or that's the reason why Napoleon lost his power at all at the second time he came back, right? Or the first time he came back, right? Second time he came to power. That's not Grouchy's fault.
Grouchy fled to America after Napoleon's defeat to escape royalist reprisals.
That's
but
pretty
was
cool.
pardoned and returned to France in 1820. 21. Marshal Moncey.
He was an honest man. Wow. Napoleon saying that about you. Wow. That's pretty cool.
Moncey ran away from home to join the army at the age of 15. After 20 years of uneventful service, he'd risen no higher than the rank of captain. But then...
Uneventful? Why aren't any of these guys going to the American Revolution? Interesting.
the French Revolution.
Right.
Most French officers were aristocrats, who, if they did not actively oppose the revolution, were nevertheless regarded as politically suspect.
Right.
The result was that 3/4 of them either fled the country or were dismissed from the army.
Or killed.
Moncey, a middle-class officer with no strong political views, reaped the benefit with meteoric promotion. By 1794, General Moncey was leading the army of the Western Pyrenees to victory over the Spanish.
That's pretty
on
cool.
what was admittedly a relative backwater of the Revolutionary Wars.
That's true, but all that saved at least the most western part of southern France, right? You have to give credit where credit's due.
In 1797, he was dismissed for alleged royalist sympathies, but reinstated in time to support Napoleon's coup of 18 Brumaire.
Right.
By his own admission, Moncey was a sensitive officer. Honest, honourable, but lacking a ruthless streak or iron will to succeed. Napoleon was aware of his limitations as a general, but made
That's
him a
good.
marshal in 1804 as part of his emphasis on continuity between the Republic and his new empire.
Right.
Moncey was appointed Inspector General of the Gendarmerie, France's militarized police force, and spent most of the rest of his career commanding reserve troops. He only held one field command again. In light of his victorious record against the Spanish, he was given command of a corps for the 1808 invasion of Spain, operating in the south of the country with mixed success.
Yeah.
In 1809, he was replaced by General Junot and returned to France.
Wow.
Moncey's finest hour came in the dying days of the Empire.
Right, this I
leading
remember.
the National Guard of Paris in a courageous but doomed defense of
Yep.
the French capital. In 1815, the restored King of France, Louis XVIII, ordered Marshal Moncey to preside at the trial of Marshal Ney for treason.
Oh, okay.
Moncey regarded Ney as a hero for having
Right.
saved so many French lives in Russia, and refused, declaring, "If I am not allowed to save my country nor my own life, then at least I will save my honor."
Wow.
After a short spell in prison, Moncey was allowed to resume his military career.
I mean, this trial, treason trial, obviously a lot of treason trials, no matter which country you are going to be. We already know the decision we're going to make. But we just need to act like it's a fair trial, right? They already knew what they were going to do. They just asked Moncey and other generals and marshals for their opinion, and then imprisoning if they said the wrong opinion.
Becoming
But, you know.
governor of Les Invalides,
Okay.
which role he presided over the repatriation of Napoleon's remains from St. Helena in 1840.
Okay.
At the end of the ceremony, the 86-year-old Marshal Moncey
Wow.
announced, "And now, let us go home to die."
Wow. Goosebumps.
20. Marshal Poniatowski.
Okay. A man of noble character, brimming over with honor and bravery. I think I remember him actually.
Prince Józef
From
Poniatowski
Leipzig.
was the King of Poland's nephew, but his military
Oh.
career began as a cavalry officer in the Austrian army,
Makes
even
sense.
serving as aide-de-camp to Emperor Józef II himself. In 1789, he transferred to the Polish army with the rank of Major General, but could
Yeah.
not save Poland from partition by its rapacious neighbors, Russia, Prussia, and Austria.
Yeah.
Like-
I mean, I think I'm gonna do a reaction videos to this partition. I think it's 3 partitions, right? I mean, this is almost the equivalent to World War II when Soviet Union and Nazi Germany comes and divides up Poland, right? It's like the same. This is a 3-way instead of a 2-way, right?
By 1795, Poland had vanished from the map,
Yep.
swallowed up by its rivals. After Napoleon's defeat of Prussia in 1806, Poniatowski decided loyal service to the French Emperor was the best way to win Poland's restoration.
That's
although
pretty cool.
he never fully trusted Napoleon's aims.
I mean, that's fair enough, because... And again, Napoleon probably thought the same of Poniatowski, because Poniatowski was probably more connected to Poland and wanted Poland to rise and be on the map, and Napoleon wanted France. It makes sense, and they could work together.
Somber, serious, and brave, Poniatowski proved an able commander of Duchy of Warsaw forces in Napoleon's service.
Okay.
When war broke out with Austria in 1809, while Napoleon advanced on Vienna, Poniatowski...
I mean, I'm just gonna say this. I mean, this was the least... This was a very bad time for Austria to declare war or whatever they did against Napoleon, right? And I believe even this is where Napoleon gets his first loss, but still, look at this.
Poniatowski waged a brilliant supporting campaign against a larger Austrian army in Galicia.
Makes sense.
For the invasion of Russia, he commanded the Polish 5th Corps. He
Okay.
and his troops distinguished themselves
yeah,
first
yeah.
at Smolensk and again at Borodino,
That I
leading
remember.
the attack on the right wing.
Yep.
Poniatowski and his corps performed heroically throughout the campaign, motivated in part by their old animosity towards Russia.
Yep.
But by the end of the
And
retreat,
Austria.
5th Corps had been virtually destroyed. Poniatowski remained loyal to Napoleon, even though the disaster in Russia paved the way for the Russian reoccupation of Poland.
Yep.
He rejoined Napoleon in Germany in 1813 and was given command of the Polish 8th Corps. On the eve of the Battle of Leipzig, he was made a marshal by Napoleon in recognition of his service and to inspire his Polish troops.
I mean, on the eve of the battle, and he killed in action age 50 at Leipzig, so he dies at Leipzig. Wow.
Poniatowski was the only non-Frenchman to receive this honor.
Wow, the only.
He and his troops fought with their usual tenacity and skill at Leipzig, holding key villages on the southern front against the Austrian and Prussian onslaught. At the end of the battle, Poniatowski commanded part of the rearguard.
Oh,
But their
yeah.
only escape route,
I remember
the
this.
bridge over the Elster River, was blown up too soon. Badly wounded, Poniatowski tried to escape by riding his horse across the river,
Yep.
but he was swept from his saddle and drowned.
Yep.
He had
Sad.
been a marshal for just 4 days.
4 days.
In the short term, Poniatowski's loyalty to France achieved nothing, as following Napoleon's defeat, Russia occupied Poland for the next century.
All right, but that's a Vision 2020 though. That when he got behind Napoleon and joined the French, I mean, at that time Poland did exist, but then when Napoleon came to power, or when Napoleon invaded more east, Poland existed again, obviously as a duchy, but still. And then it didn't exist again, right? So I mean, that's a Vision 2020 thing to say, but okay.
But Poniatowski's legend lived on,
Oh, okay.
a model of Polish patriotism that inspired future generations.
Look at that. What does that remind you of? I don't think he looked like that. I don't think he wore those clothes. But what? Comment down below. What does this symbolize to you? Obviously in the East and in Central Europe, or actually, no, now I'm thinking of it, almost the entire Europe has the eagle as a symbolization, or a bird as a symbol for something, right? Obviously, Holy Roman Empire had 2 birds, and Austria-Hungary had 2 birds because they were on 2 fronts, right? Albania, same thing. But what does that remind you of? That looks like a Roman soldier, whatever, right? That looks like a Roman statue. The eagle looks like a Roman eagle. I know other countries has the same eagle, but that's because of the Roman things. Look at his sword and look at his, what do you call that? Pocket for sword, whatever you want to call that, right? That's a Roman statue. That's pretty cool, though. Look at that.
19.
Yeah, Jordon, yep.
Marshal Jordon.
I certainly use that man very ill, okay. Jordon is a true patriot, and that is the answer to many things that have been said about him. Okay, he used them ill, okay.
As a young French private, Jordon saw combat in Georgia during the American Revolutionary War.
There you go, finally someone's battling in the US or American Revolution. Okay, he was in Georgia. Pretty fierce fighting there, okay.
But he then caught a fever that led to his discharge and plagued him for the rest of his life.
I mean,
when the French Revolution began, he was elected captain of his local National Guard unit, fought at the battles of Jemappes and Hochschutter, and was rapidly promoted to general.
Huh.
In 1794, he made his name defeating coalition forces at the Battle of Fleurus.
Huh,
This was
okay.
a crucial victory of the Revolutionary
I believe there's and during the 100 Years' War, there was also a Battle of Fleurus. Maybe I'm wrong with that. Maybe.
War, which handed France control of Belgium for 20 years.
Wow.
It was also notable for the French
at that.
Army's use of balloon reconnaissance, the
Wow.
first effective use of an aircraft in military history.
Whoa. That is awesome. And in the First World War, that's also a common thing.
Jordon became a prominent politician under the Directory, lending his name to a law that formalized France's policy of mass conscription. As a committed Republican, Jordon refused to support Napoleon's coup of 18 Brumaire,
Makes
but
sense.
his fame as the victor of Fleurus was enough to ensure he became a marshal in 1804. Jordon was on good terms with Napoleon's elder brother, Joseph. When Joseph became king of Spain in 1808, Jordon went with him as his military advisor. But the situation in Spain proved beyond Jourdan's military skills to solve.
Again, it's the same with, I don't know who it was. Maybe it was Gushi, but maybe they're not the best at the highest position. Maybe they need a little lower position, more local position, right?
He faced stubborn resistance from the Spanish and Portuguese, supported by the British, and an equally stubborn refusal to cooperate from other French marshals in Spain, theoretically under Jourdan's command, but who repeatedly ignored his orders and openly questioned his competence. Marshal Soult in Andalusia was a prime offender, while Marshal Victor's insubordination at the Battle of Talavera contributed directly to the French defeat.
I mean, this was just disastrous. They're like petty babies or something. Like, they're like little girls just bickering, right? I mean, it gets to your head, and you know. Right.
Struck by another bout of ill health, Jordon went home to recover. 2 years later, he returned to Spain. But at the Battle of Vitoria in 1813, he and King Joseph were outmaneuvered and decisively beaten by Wellington, leading to the collapse of the Bonapartist Kingdom of Spain. Jordon never held a major command again, but his 20 years of service and evident patriotism were widely recognized and respected. He was made a peer by Napoleon, a count by Louis XVIII, and died in 1833, serving as governor of Les Invalides.
I mean, a lot of them, like 3 or 4 of them were that, at least of these people, right, or these men. I think that's pretty cool.
Perino, Brun, Serrurier, Kellerman, Gushi, Moncey, Poniatowski, Jordon. 8 down, 18 to go. Join us for part 2, when we'll continue the countdown. Coming soon.
Wow, that was incredible. I can understand why people said you need to react to this. This was pretty cool. It's cool it's a cool concept, right? Because you know some of them during the Napoleonic Wars. You know some of these names. You know what they did at that time, but then going a little deeper into what these men did, right? They are also larger than life characters, but some of them are not, right? Alright, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!